Welcome to SolFul Connections, where we skip the small talk and head right into the soul talk. I'm Amanda Solar, and each week we share the kinds of stories that remind us we're not alone. It's about being human, raw and unfiltered, just real talk. Let's connect.
Connection.
I am here with Noemi Beres, who is the co-founder, maybe
Yeah.
co-entrepreneur of Podcast Connections. And I want to talk a little bit, Noemi, about your journey. I want to talk about podcasting, regardless of the fact that not everybody listening has a podcast or guests on a podcast. But Noemi, I am selfish and I need to know what to do better. And I just think that discussion is so interesting. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for chiming in all the way from Cyprus. That is just so exciting to me. I love this global community. Noemi, first of all, can I ask you, do you know the origin story of your name?
Yes. Yeah, I know. Just a short story about that. My late dad picked the name for me. And it was an unusual name, even in Hungary back in 1979 when I was born. And my mom didn't want it. She wanted to call me Eve.
Oh,
Thankfully, my dad won this battle. And so that's how, I got the name Noemi. It's a Hebrew name, actually.
it's so beautiful. And, it's interesting too. Like, it's such a legacy because you said that your father has passed away.
Yeah.
So it's kind of touching that you carry him in your name, something he fought to give you. Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can always share this story with people because it's a fun one. So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, here's to your beautiful name. And as we kind of get into it, how have you found light lately? What's made you happy recently? What has just lit you up recently?
I'm kind of the seeker of joy. So I always try to incorporate joyful moments into my life, even if it's a bad day, a good day, or like a meh day or anything day. And for me, like obviously having chats or having a chat with my teenage son, it always lights me up in different ways. And I love nature. I love walking. I love hiking, and I walk daily. And that time is kind of my sacred time when I just unplug. I sometimes listen to music, sometimes just walk in silence, and that really lights me up and really helps me to reset my body, my soul. And I just love it. And because I live in Cyprus, it's a beautiful Mediterranean country. So basically you can walk all winter, fall. The weather is not that bad. We had some rainy days, but apart from that, we don't really have, like down here where I live, not up in the mountains. We have snow there, but up down here in the Mediterranean part, it's perfect for walking. So yeah, nature, walking lights me up. Art, drumming. I have a djembe drum and a frame drum and a hang, and that lights me up too. Or art, like making art. I'm also a mixed media collage artist, and creating art always lights me up. So there are a lot of things in life that can light us up. I think we can always find it everywhere and anywhere.
Of course you're an artist. Somehow that makes total sense. And I have to say, I think I'd walk more if I lived in Cyprus, but maybe that's just my excuse. So you referenced Cyprus, you referenced Hungary. How did you come to live in Cyprus? Do you mind sharing that, Noemi?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I'm an open book about my travels and different countries. So yes, I am from Hungary. I was born and raised there. But when I finished university, I wanted to get away from Hungary. Let's put it that way. And first I lived in Denmark for a year, and then moved to Ireland and lived there for 7 years.
Wow.
And Although Ireland is beautiful and, all the green rolling hills of Ireland, but it's very cold and rainy. It can be. And we had like, 2 proper summer days. So we decided to move to another country. And that was 15 years ago. And that's how I ended up living in Cyprus.
Love that. So I have two questions. One is, what did you study at university? What were your interests?
I studied Scandinavian linguistics, so I'm a linguist by trade. And that's why I was in Denmark,
I
because
see.
I went to high school there for a year, lived with a Danish family. I was an exchange student with
Wow.
AFS, and that's how I learned Danish. And then I went back to Hungary and had my master's degree in Scandinavian linguistics. But with that master's degree in Hungary, back in early 2000, that wasn't the most popular degree that you could have and find a job. So I decided, okay, so let's find something else, a different country maybe. And I got a job in Ireland because of the languages I spoke. I speak Danish, Swedish, and I do understand a bit of Norwegian because of the other two. So I got a job in Ireland, and that's how I ended up living in Ireland.
Well, where did this confidence and courage come from? Were you always that way? Was that Noemi as a little girl? Those are big steps.
Those are not easy steps. So
No.
I had a lot of support from my parents, and because I'm an only child, so no brothers, no sisters, no siblings here. And it wasn't easy even for them to let me go to these countries and
Yeah.
to live in different places. But I come from a very small town, and somehow it felt suffocating when I was living there, and I always wanted something else. I loved the English language as well. I mean, first I wanted to have an English lit master's degree, but then I didn't succeed actually getting to the university with English, which is funny now because I've been living in English speaking countries for many, many years. But somehow I had that kind of push in me, or the wonder to just discover the world. I traveled a lot with my parents, but mainly in the surrounding countries around Hungary. But of course, this travel bug thing, it was in my body because both of my parents loved traveling. And, I was a little girl. I'm a travel agent. Like, who does that? Like,
Right.
I have my travel brochures and everything, and I was always like about countries and imitating. I could speak English because I couldn't back then, and I was like 6, 7 or something like that.
Oh,
so
how interesting.
I was always like in an awe of getting out there, discovering the world, and getting to know new cultures. And I didn't want to stay there for my whole life. I knew that even as a kid. I told my parents, I want to travel. I want to see the world. And I think that's why I ended up living in different countries.
Yeah.
And that's the courage that kind of kept me going.
Yeah, because you were following your calling. I mean, you're right. I didn't play travel agent when I was a girl. I can relate to the pretending to speak a language that you don't know, because I would always learn like 2 words of another country from a book. And then I would tell my friends, we're starting a Danish club. But then I only had the 2 words. So I was always starting a club, like, this is a Spanish club. And then I would know 2 words. But I do also think sometimes like the roots of our life can be found in those drives and those like interests when we were little. That's incredible. Okay, so how do you go from like linguistics to podcasting? Like, I know that there were not podcasts in the early, 2000s. Or were there? Maybe there were, Noemi. What do I know?
I have no idea about that because I wasn't in the podcasting world either. I became an entrepreneur in 2007, and that was back in Ireland. And I really enjoyed that, not to have a boss.
Yeah.
And so it was so fascinating just to start something new, but I had no experience in marketing, sales, nothing. But I think I love learning new things. So for me, it was a huge task to, okay, let's dive into marketing, let's dive into sales. And I studied a lot about online marketing, sales, social media marketing between 2007 and up till now. And so what happened, we started an online travel related business back in 2007. And I was doing a lot of content creation, blogging, travel writing, you name it. And I managed all the social media accounts of our company. So it was fun and I really enjoyed that part. But unfortunately, COVID happened. The pandemic happened in 2020. So the whole travel industry collapsed from one day to another, like so many other businesses. So we just had to stop. And that was it. And we had to pivot. And thankfully, we had a mentor from Ireland, and he helped us to get started in the podcasting world. So we basically set up our website in 2020. That was in April. So we just celebrated our 6th birthday this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And we just started to run our own podcast booking agency, which sounds easier than it,
it doesn't sound easy. No, because it's not easy now, Noemi. And back then I can remember when people talked about podcasting and I was like, pod-whatting?
I know. Yeah. I had no clue. Like I had no experience in podcasting, in anything. I didn't even listen to podcasts before 2020. So for me, it was a completely new business, but because there was nothing really left from the previous business. And this seemed like a fabulous idea, something new that I've never, tried and experienced. So, okay, let's dive in. Let's do this. And I'm kind of this person, like, okay, something goes down. I'm just like, okay, let's do something else. Just keep going. And that's how I ended up from being a linguist, running a podcast booking agency.
But being a linguist would have to help because it is an international kind of world that we are living, especially in the world of podcasting. Who is us? Do you mind if I ask? You said us.
My husband and me.
Okay, so you're in this together. Good for you, by the way. Because that can be a whole other podcast, Noemi, where we talk about that. Okay, Noemi, what makes a good podcast host? I know that there are a lot of things, but if you had to say, like, I don't know, 3 things that you say, these are things that you should really think about if you're going into the podcast arena, what would you say?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. And I love that. First, I mean, I could send you a list or a book about that.
We could do a whole podcast about podcasting.
Season about that, yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, a good listener. I think it's really important. Yeah. Being present and being a good listener, this is crucial because if you're not one, I mean, that you shouldn't be a podcast host. I mean, that's it. And someone who is prepared about the guest, I think that's also really important because sometimes I felt that I've been on podcasts, a lot of podcasts in the past 6 years, and not every podcast host prepares. So I figured it out when, like 2 seconds before the interview started and they just checked my bio and they can't even, pronounce my name or they have no clue where I'm from. So they have no idea about it. So being prepared, they can listen and being present. And it's hard to pick the third one because there are so many, but I think about just having that kind of able to do that kind of free flow conversation as between 2 friends and holding space for that. I think that's really important when it comes to good hosts. And there's so many other things, of course.
100%. And I think that even those 3 things, I'm sure that you could do a whole podcast about each one of them and what that means. I think that actually those things translate into life too. I mean, you could say, be a good listener, be interested, find out about the person. And when you're talking about holding space, that was something that I still work on. And I have noticed by listening to my own podcasts, because sometimes as a host, you can think, move it along. and you don't allow that person to kind of collect themselves or think about what they're trying to say or wanting to say. I think that's a beautiful tip. Okay. Noemi, what makes a good guest? 3 things that make a good podcast guest.
Like similar. It's so similar because
Yeah.
like it's a win-win situation when everything goes well. And of course, I think we need podcast guests who listen to podcasts before the interview. Like yesterday, before I was getting ready for your show. Obviously, I listened to an episode because I found that it's really important. So listen to at least one episode, being prepared again. And I think that's crucial when it comes to guests, because I've seen that many times that not every guest prepares, and they don't add value to the show, and then you need that. So being prepared is really important. And the third one, when it comes to guests, being super clear about their topics and talking points, and they know what their business is about, and sharing their stories in a way that aligns with the audience. So it's not just talking about themselves, but whatever they're sharing, that applies to everyone else. And that's why it's really important for the listeners to listen to those episodes and not having just those monologues about themselves, but just really reflecting their story through the audience, because I think that's where the connection happens.
Yeah, those are really great points. The other thing that I've noticed with guests is we talked about fear, the fear that's present in so many different arenas. And I think that people are almost afraid of the podcast that they just did. That's what I find sometimes. They're like, okay, I did it. Let's sweep it under the rug. I don't want anyone to listen to this, including myself. And I don't know, that maybe that reflects their own need to kind of explore their own self-love, or I'm sure it runs deeper than podcasting, but it is fascinating, don't you think? You must, because this is what you do.
It is so fascinating. And I know people, and they want to be, because they know they need to be on podcast because it would help their business, but they hate, which is a strong word, but they hate their own voice and how they sound on podcasts. And they will never listen back to an interview because they find it so disturbing, and I just don't get it. And obviously it's hard because I'm not them. So it's hard to understand. This is just a conversation. Like, it doesn't matter how many people will listen. Like, just focus on these 2 people, like you and me right now behind the mic, and just talking to each other like, 2 friends over a cup of coffee or tea, and just treat it as it is and enjoy. But it's easier said than done sometimes. But it comes with practice again.
I agree. And you just illuminated something for me, Noemi, because I think it was in the book Atomic Habits, but I could be wrong because sometimes my books run together. But he said, don't be so attached to your identity. When you become really attached to identity, in the book, he's referencing the need to change and why we can't change. And part of that is becoming attached to identity. But I also think that reflects when you listen to your own voice, you have this idea of what you should sound like and how you should engage. And sometimes the reality isn't quite in line.
Yeah.
So it's about embracing actually who you are.
Exactly.
I hear myself and I sound like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Rocky. I don't think I have a Philadelphia accent here in the States, but when I listen to myself, I think, oh, there it is. Well,
it's so interesting to see these things. And when I started, obviously I had problem just to accept the fact that I have an accent and maybe I make mistakes, and then I got over it. It's like, okay, I make mistakes because I speak other languages, like other 3, 4, 5 or whatever. So it's like, that's okay. I'm from a different country. But you need time and you need to practice. And that's what I tell people. Just practice, because everything gets better. Your first podcast interview won't be your best. That's for sure.
Great point. And it is so incredible that you can speak other languages. I mean, we're all jealous, Noemi. We are. And yet we don't want to put it into, but still, don't want to put in the work to do it, but love it. Okay. So I love to just also ask random questions on
Mhm.
my podcast. You said you listened to one, so maybe I just throw out some questions. Um, and the reason I do that, I think it's also because A, I'm curious about the person with whom I'm speaking, and B, it's kind of interesting to see where we connect and where somebody is really unique. And I love that about human beings. So, with that said, Noemi, I'm just going to throw out different questions. So, what for you is a special childhood memory or a childhood memory that it's just imprinted?
I have a lot, and because I grew up in the countryside in Hungary, so I was really close to nature. And I think those moments when I went outside to my parents' garden and collected strawberries, and you didn't even wash them, you just ate them, and
Yeah.
just sitting in the field. And there was one particular memory. I was lying in the grass and listening to airplanes, like it just. And that's so, and whenever I go back to that memory, it gives me so, this fuzzy, good, warm feeling in my chest. And these older airplanes, I'm not talking about jets or whatever,
Yeah.
but these airplanes and sun shining, I'm lying in the grass, and it was magical. And I always go back to that place when I'm feeling down or a little blue or something like that.
What's so interesting to me about that memory, Noemi, is the fact that you still somehow incorporate your passion for travel in this moment of serenity, connecting with nature. It's still there. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, yeah, very true.
So, what is a pet peeve? Something that it doesn't always annoy other people, but you find it might annoy you.
I actually wrote a LinkedIn post about that yesterday.
Oh, good.
One of my pet peeves when people talk over each other. It really annoys me, and especially on podcasts when nobody's patient and everybody's just talking over each other. Or when you watch like TV shows or something like that, and people do that. So because for me, it's kind of it's a sign of disrespect,
Mhm.
not waiting for your turn. And it's really interesting. It's so fascinating to understand my brain about that. But then a lot of people agreed with me that it is kind of disrespectful if you don't wait for your turn and you're not patient enough. So yeah, one of my pet peeves. Of course, I have other pet peeves as well, but
Yes.
maybe this is one of them.
Well, this one I love because I feel like, how do you say you're an only child without saying you're an only child? Because I'm the youngest. So I'm like, I have to like jump on over
Yeah,
people to be heard. Isn't that funny?
it
So
is.
many of our things are just kind of rooted in whatever, People probably listened to you when you were little. Okay, so what about a trait that you love in other people? It's something that maybe pulls you in or you kind of either respect or you're drawn to it.
When I feel heard, I think it's really powerful because they're like I think we struggle with that, like feel seen, heard, valued in our lives. And once you've been heard by someone, I think there's something like a magical door opens, and you feel understood and you feel seen and valued.
Yeah. Okay, what about a trait that you just love in yourself? Something you really like about who you are?
I think I'm kind. Not I think it, but I am kind.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way. I am kind. And
good.
and and because I talked to someone and we had a very interesting conversation about being nice or being kind, and the difference, like a huge difference between the two,
Yeah.
because being nice is not the same being kind. So I think being kind, it's important. And if I can say another trait about me, that I'm a go-giver. Obviously, I'm a member of the Go-Giver community. Shout out to Bob Berg and all
Yes.
my friends
Another
there.
podcast guest.
Yes. That's how I found
Great.
you. That's how I found
Oh,
your
that's
podcast.
great.
Thanks to Bob. So yeah, so these two, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that distinction between nice and kind because it's confusing. I sometimes think when somebody is nice, you think they must be kind. And when you discover something that contradicts that, it's very confusing. What about, do you have a guilty pleasure, something that you enjoy or you think it's fun, but you feel like, oh, I shouldn't take the time to do this, or I shouldn't be doing this for whatever reason?
I stopped treating things I shouldn't or should. So for
Yeah,
me now, there are no guilty pleasures because it's just pleasure, and I try to treat it as it is. And yeah, I wouldn't say like a chocolate or anything like that because I don't think that's guilt. So it's like
I
if you want a
agree.
chocolate, just eat the chocolate and whatever.
Yeah,
But you don't have to eat a ton of it. You just know the
yeah,
other guilty pleasures. Oh, I love watching reality shows on
yeah,
Netflix. That's my guilty pleasure. We can
yeah,
say that, but I don't feel guilty about it though. So it
yes.
relaxes me. Or decluttering shows on YouTube. That's my thing.
Oh,
I love decluttering. Like I'm kind of a decluttering nerd when it comes to that. So those shows really relax me, and I
yes.
like that about.
You know what? I need to watch a decluttering show actually, because I could do a cluttering show. Okay. Question about the three people question. I love this question. If you could have a couple of hours, maybe over a meal, with three people, they could be people from your life, or they could be people who have passed on, or they could be people from history, famous people, whatever. Three people, who would you have dinner with?
My dad, for sure.
Mm.
And I would love to have that conversation with him. And my granddad, who I lost him when I was about 6, and he was also kind of an artist, a photographer, and he was amazing. But obviously, I only knew him like for 6 years. So I would love to have a conversation with him about history because he survived. He got back to Hungary during the Second World War and everything. And I would love to hear those stories from him. That he went through a lot during that time. So I would love to talk to him about that as an adult. That would be amazing. So the two men in my life, and Frida Kahlo, because she is one of my favorite artists from Mexico, and I love her art. And she was also a self-taught artist. And I watched
Oh,
her. I visited her exhibition in Dublin, in Budapest, in different countries, and I'm just fascinated by her
yes,
life, boldness. Yeah, just what she did. Yeah,
yes,
those three
yes.
people.
That would be a really powerful dinner. Can you imagine your father, your grandfather, and Frida Kahlo? Okay, what can you share, if you don't mind, a lesson maybe you learned from your father or his life, or something that you still remember or think of, or has, or impacts you?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to. I mean, he was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, and he was given like 2, 3, whatever months, and he lived 2 more years. And I think thanks to the strength he had in him, and
Mhm.
also the support from the family and the love that surrounded him. And what I learned from he is never give up, just keep going. And I remember him so clearly, even he was in hospitals, different surgeries, and so on. He was sitting there, lying there, and making lists about the future and like things he wants to do. And it was stage 4. Everybody knew that's not going to happen, but he never gave it up. So that's like and also to just to enjoy every moment what we got here on the planet, because we never know when it ends. And I think that's just being grateful for life.
Do you think any of your being a seeker of joy um comes from him, comes from that? Where does that come from, do you think?
I think it can be. I don't know. I mean, I grew up in like in Central Europe, and I mean, let me tell you, Amanda, people there, like when I was growing up, they weren't seeker of joys or anything like that.
Oh,
So
wow.
for me, it was a really long journey and self-discovery, what I had to do by myself, and realize that those problems are not my problems, or my ancestors' problems are struggles like my mom's or my dad's. They are not mine. I'm
Mm,
not them. So I have to kind of distinct myself from that kind of from them. I look up to them and I love them to bits, but I have to be my own person. And somehow I found myself and realized that I can't live the same life as they did because I'm my own person. So I did a lot of, studying and learning about this, and I discovered like this is how you enjoy life, because it's not about like smiling all the time or being happy, because
Right.
that's not possible. Like there's no person on the planet can do that for all the time, but you can definitely be a seeker of joy and finding those joyful moments every single day to help you get through, even on a bad day or even on a boring day. We have all those joyful moments if we are ready to find them.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's part of who you are. That's part of what you came to the planet with, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially because you were in an environment. It doesn't sound that you were just surrounded by a community that was just like skipping through the tulips.
Oh no, absolutely not. Like no, it's not.
How would you characterize the environment of where you were in Hungary at that time?
You mean my family or
No,
my
just
wider surround?
the wider surrounding.
The wider surrounding was as like a small town community in
Yeah.
Hungary. And I always felt like an outsider in that space because I wanted to fly,
Yeah.
and people who lived there for decades, they couldn't fly and they didn't want to fly. So
Yeah.
so it was kind of like a narrow-minded community
Mhm.
surrounded me. But thanks to my parents who, they surrounded
Yes.
me with love and the love of travel, I could experience things that people never experienced there. So that helped me to get out of that place. But yeah, it wasn't the best place for me as a kid. It's not because
Yeah.
it was a very interesting space to grow up, and there was nothing going on. It was,
Yeah.
I think I just felt like an outsider, and it was kind of boring for me, to be
Yeah. And I
honest.
mean, possibly that was your launching pad, because if it had
Yeah.
been exciting and you found all of the stuff, you possibly wouldn't be where you are today. So it's so interesting how those, I don't know, those kinds of young things can serve a little bit as like a launching pad to get us where we should or need to be. I won't use should.
Yeah, and it was so funny because I just wanted to add something to that, Amanda, because when I became an exchange student in Denmark, so I experienced the other side of the world, and oh my gosh, this is so different. The whole school system is amazing. Oh, I would love to stay here forever. And so it was so different. It's like completely black and white between like the Hungarian school system I experienced compared to the Danish one, because that was heaven and earth. Like it was so
Wow.
different, and I had an amazing community, and I just realized how powerful a good community, a good class in your school. It was amazing. So
Yeah.
I kind of opened up my eyes, and I was not the same person when I went back, of course. No,
That's interesting, that contrast.
recognize me. Yeah, totally.
Do you find yourself reading? And if you do, what language do you read in?
Now I love reading. Like since since I could read, I'm a bookworm. So
Wow.
I always enjoyed reading. Obviously, when I was younger, I only read in Hungarian. I was reading in Hungarian, but then with the Scandinavian languages and everything, then I started to read in different Scandinavian languages. Right now, mostly English. Like I
Wow.
don't really read Hungarian anymore. It's just English.
It's fascinating to me. Just because reading can be an effort in and of itself. So to then be translating is beyond my comprehension. What about any books that just stand out for you as books that kind of made an impact on your, or maybe shifted something?
Yeah, there are a lot of them because I'm a bookworm.
You're such a reader. One of my daughters, who is also a reader, says to me, "Mom, when you ask that question, you should kind of go, when you were young, when you were this, at this
Yeah.
stage." But I don't. I'm kind of curious, like what jumps into somebody's mind?
Yeah, it's always like, and I had another podcast host. I was a guest, and she told me, because she's also a go-giver, and part of Bob's community, it's like, you can't say the go-giver. It's like, but it is, Tammy is the go-giver. So
Yeah.
it really, it really stands out for me. And I read it first time back in 2007, and really shaped the way I lead my life and my business. And I just love that book. It's always here next to me. And I always ask people when I get on call, did you read this book? And I even show them. It's like, no, I have. Oh, yeah. Then they're making notes and everything, and it's so funny. So yeah. So your question to your answer, it's The Go-Giver by Bob Berg and John David Mann.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And is it because of what you said, because it shaped the way you kind of conduct yourself in business, etc.? Was it transformative, or was it affirming something you already thought?
That's a great question. I never thought about that. But obviously, I never thought about myself as a go-giver before I read The Go-Giver. But then I realized, and especially after I joined the community, it's like, okay, I've been doing this too, and I'm just like this. So I realized that, yeah, so probably I was born like this, I just didn't know about it. And then reading the book and joining the community made me realize, like, okay, so this is part of me. This is part of my personality.
Yeah, I love that. And finally, Noemi, Soulful Connections is part of a larger ecosystem called Soulful Living. When you hear that phrase, soulful living, what does that conjure up for you? What does that mean for you?
I think and I love that question, and it's so interesting. And I think, again, it goes back to feel seen, heard, valued, and connected with like-minded souls, and living in a heart-centered way where everything connects, and we are not on different sides, but we are connected with the whole world. And just because we are. I mean, I read Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, and how community shapes us and how collective energy shapes us. And I think, for me, that's soulful connection.
Beautiful. I'm glad we're connected.
Yes, me too.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a valued part of the Soulful community. Thank you to William Aronson for writing, recording, and producing the Soulful Connections theme song. And finally, always know you're not alone. We are connected. We're all in this thing together, and you and your story are important. Let's just keep on connecting.